then they have the lunch, which is also kind of a good time to meet people.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So I am excited this morning to talk about Holy Mother, the Sri Sharda Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's first primary disciple, and then manifesting herself.
She has a bit of a hearing.
Okay, we don't have any in-house right now. Yes, go ahead and lift it up. It'll come off. All right. So this morning, I wanted to talk about Sri Sharda Devi, and the lecture is titled Mother's Riffraff. And it was actually the first lecture in the Vedanta centers that I ever gave. I don't know how many years ago, probably 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. And it was something that I read in Swami Gambirananda's life of Sri Sharda Devi, where he says that she complained at one point that Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna, had taken all of the good devotees, all the good disciples, and left her with the riffraff. And when I read that, I was so happy inside. It was actually literally the time that I felt like I had found my place. I had found my calling, my ministry as it was. And at that point, I knew that this is where I belonged. That Mother's Riffraff was, one, my crowd, and two, my area of service. And at that time is when I decided to become a cheerleader and to see myself and my work that way, much more than a guru, because who wants riffraff as guru, right? So we became cheerleader, and I always imagined being at the end of the line, being those people. Thakur says everybody gets to come home, everybody gets fed. Some will have breakfast, some will make it by lunchtime, and some will be coming up at dinner time. And in my mind, with a sly smile, I kind of knew that I'd probably be coming in for dessert, and that I would be the one cheering on the last few of us who are still kind of looking around, trying to figure things out as we come in. And so I take great delight in doing this lecture and speaking about Holy Mother, because as many of you know who know my past, Holy Mother is my everything. She is the one that has kept me together and kept me faithful and kept me hoping, kept me believing, kept me trying again and again these last 20-something years that we've spent together. So I want to share some of that with you this morning. And I'm going to start today with a poem, not from Hafiz as usual, but a poem from the book titled Gitanjali by Rabindranath Tagore. And it's a lovely poem. It sort of encapsulates much of what I want to speak about today, but in an indirect way, but a beautiful poem. When I give up the helm, I know that the time has come for thee to take it. What there is to do will be instantly done. Vain is this struggle. Then take away your hands and silently put up with your defeat, my heart, and think it your good fortune to sit perfectly still where you are placed. These, my lamps, are blown out at every little puff of wind, and trying to light them I forget all else again and again. But I shall be wise this time, and wait in the dark, spreading my mat on the floor, and whenever it is thy pleasure, my Lord, come silently and take thy seat here. There's so many aspects of that poem that are important to us as spiritual seekers. One is that idea of complete surrender. The other idea is trying our very best and not finding discouragement, but finding that surrender, finding that peace, to sit before the Lord and to accept where we're seated, to not be always looking for fixing the moment, but being content in it and finding our relationship with the beloved in it. And today, in looking at Holy Mother, that's the emphasis. It's the idea of life as practice. It's the idea of life as relationship with the beloved, breaking down the barriers, as I'm always trying to do in my own life, and trying to encourage others to break it down, this idea of having a spiritual practice that's separate and apart from your day, to have an idea of God that's compartmentalized and somehow a part of your life or an aspect of your character, breaking free of that bondage and really knowing that your life and the way that you live is your practice. Who you are, what you do, what you think, and what you say is your religion. And all of it, the life that you live, is an expression of that relationship between you and that beloved, you and the divinity that is your nature, that gives you your awareness, that gives your ability to see and express love, who gives you the intelligence to understand and make sense of anything that the senses give to you and that the mind projects to you. And so it's in that embrace that we live. And the life we live is not an attempt to achieve or attempt to reach a goal or to go for a pinnacle. Our life is a response to a beautiful notion of love, a beautiful notion of being, of existing, and to see this experience as the highest ideal, and to work to manifest, to remove that sense of smallness that's ever present in us, that's ever tempting us to go for the limitation, to go for the easy, to go for the comfortable, and to live in the world of the unknown that we actually inhabit, to embrace the world of wonder that we actually live in, and to renew that vision of wonder, and to fall down as our wonderful Tagore was saying there, in silence and in wonder, to accept our place in the dark of unknowing, perhaps, and to wait with love for the beloved. So many of you have known through many of the classes we talk about many of the saints, and St. John of the Cross had that wonderful image of his entire life, his entire practice. He saw himself as sitting on the precipice of salvation, the precipice of marriage with the divine, and that his practice was all about preparing the bridal chamber which he lived in, just sitting there waiting for his husband to arrive, and that his practice, his spiritual practice, wasn't about arranging that marriage. The marriage was already promised. The betrothal had already happened. The engagement was active. He was just waiting for the husband to come to the bridal chamber. And so in his practice, he was just about making that bridal chamber beautiful and wonderful, and sitting there in delight and hope and faith, knowing that indeed when the time would come, his beloved would be there. One of the first things that I read about Holy Mother is this little story right here. I'm going to read several just little stories of the Divine Mother that say better than any way possible exactly how she lived this life of relationship. And I want to look at it as a little bit different, not so much from the perspective of the devotee, but from the perspective of the mother, as to why she would do these things and why she would say these things, and how it reflects her own inner attitude, which I think is the biggest hint to us about how to develop our inner attitude. It says that Sharda Devi could not turn away anybody who addressed her as mother. One day, as usual, she was carrying Sri Ramakrishna's food to his room when a woman said to her, "Mother, please let me carry the plate." She agreed, and the woman took it to the master's room and placed it there and went away. But the master could not even touch the food. Looking at Sharada Devi, who was watching, he said, "What have you done? Why did you allow her to touch this plate? Don't you know she lives an immoral life? How can I eat the food that she has touched?" Sharada Devi pleaded with him that he eat the food, but he wanted her promise that she would not allow that woman to carry his food again. The mother said with folded hands, "Master, I cannot give any such promise, but I shall try to bring the food myself. If someone addresses me as mother and wishes to carry the plate, I shall not be able to refuse. You must not forget that you are not only my Lord, but you are the Lord of all." Sri Ramakrishna was satisfied and ate his meal. Here is our first member of the Riffraff tribe. This woman who wanted to serve the Lord, wanted to take the plate to Thakur, but indeed had lived an immoral life, had made her mistakes, and perhaps they were many. But she wanted to serve. She wanted to bring something to Thakur. And of course, the statement is made because it's necessary, that purity does matter, that it matters because it's what sets us free. It's what allows us to see the love of God and what allows us to experience it on a regular basis. So, of course, Thakur would have to bring light to it. He would have to show that discomfort, as he does several times in the gospel when confronted with impurity. He has to set the bar. He has to say to us, I know. And no, it's not okay to live in that state. You must transcend. You must find your way for your own benefit. But he doesn't leave us there, because the Divine Mother comes to our rescue to remind Thakur in that perfection that he is our Father also. He is our beloved also. And that he must look past those faults in us. And through the mother, Sri Ramakrishna gets a lesson. What an amazing moment that is, to have God as mother and God as beloved, or God as father, or however you might see the pairing, but to see the interaction there and the wonderful relationship that's even happening between those two aspects of the divine for our benefit, for our uplifting, for our faith, for us to see and understand that there is room at the table for everyone, and that our beloved mother, in that demonstration of what true motherhood is, puts out her hand in absolute patience, in absolute tenderness, and says that not only will she not refuse us who call on her as mother, but that she cannot refuse us who call on her as mother. And what a beautiful seed that is for a response from us. We do not have to seek the grace of the mother if she herself says she cannot but give it. We don't have to beg and plead and live a life in beggarship, asking, please, oh please, be gracious, be merciful. Mother here has told us that that grace and that mercy is ours, and that we must get it into our mind. She makes that statement. She says, the grace of one's guru is easy to achieve, but the grace of one's mind is difficult indeed. And that's that inner voice that needs to live in response to this grace. It's that inner voice that needs to stop the accusation inside and the constant beating us up and tearing us down and reminding us of our faults and reminding us of our shortcomings. That voice needs to change and live into a response to a grace that makes that unimportant in the sense of achieving, but vitally important for us to find an inspiration and a proper response to that kind of grace. Mother does not put any limits on this. So you can indeed throw everything up and say, I'm not doing anything. But you have to understand that that's a statement of deep surrender that has to touch every aspect of your life. You can't just apply it to your practice or just apply it to your vices. You have to apply it to every area. So if you're going to sit down and say, oh, mother says that she cannot refuse me, and so I'm just going to take the name of mother, and that's just going to be it. I'm not going to do anything else. In one sense, that's absolutely fine if that faith is there. But you have to look at all areas of your life and say, can I extend that surrender to everything? To my job, to my friends, to my husband, to my family, to my wife, to my kids, to, can I lay down all of my desires in that sense of surrender? She goes on to say, suppose one of my children has smeared himself with dirt. It is I and no one else who shall have to wash him clean, and to take him in my arms. To make mistakes is man's very nature, but few of those who criticize know how to correct them. This is another beautiful statement of Mother, knowing the struggle that we have, knowing the difficulties that we have, knowing our secret loves and our secret vices, as well as our public ones, that she knows this, and she says it is nobody but she who must pick us up, clean us off, and set us on our course. And so there's a matter of faith in that, to know that your spiritual life is not about cleaning yourself up. Your spiritual life is about taking the company of your mother, who will clean you up. And to let that work be done because of the inspiration you feel at the presence and thought of the Divine Mother, of that divine beloved, who has already told us in numerous scriptures through all of his religions in the world that he's got us covered, that it is love that is the most important thing. And that love comes from being loved. And we know that love through relationship with this divinity, with this inner ideal that not only do we read about in the scriptures and see in these amazing manifestations of God, but that we see in the quietness and the solitude of our own heart as being our very own composition. This is what we are. We are that love incarnated. We are that love made manifest. And that our spiritual life is not trying to attain it, but trying to be quiet and manifest that nature, which comes of its own accord when the ego and selfishness of the mind are quieted and put on the name of the beloved. She's talking to one of her other young disciples, and she says, "My child, several among those who come here are up to anything in life." You know, I shouldn't laugh too hard. I betray too much about myself, but you know, Mother really knows her audience when she says these things. "My child, several among those who come here are up to anything. No type of sin has been left undone by them." You know, so at least they're good at something. She says, "But when they come here and address me as mother, I forget everything, and they get more than they deserve." This is that wonderful nature of the mother, which allows for such a playfulness and such a sweetness. You know, that she is a mother of kindness and compassion to the degree that you cannot help but be changed, but in whose light your worst deeds become a matter of a chuckle and a shake, that, oh, what is this toddler up to? I always talk about one of my favorite YouTube videos that I ever watched was this young boy. Oh, I guess, I don't know, he's like 3 or 4 years old, and his mother has just cooked baked cupcakes for his class. And one of them goes missing. And mother calls him into the kitchen, and the young boy comes, you know, toddling into the kitchen, and he's got blue icing all around his lips. And she's like, "Jimmy, did you eat the cupcake?" Mm-mm. You know, "I didn't eat the cupcake." And the mother says, "Are you sure?" You know, and he has all of the moves, right? Puts his hands behind his back. He's like, "I'm sure." And she says, "Jimmy, do you see your face in the camera? Can you see your face in the camera?" And she flips it around. He sees it, and his look on his face is like, he knows, but he's holding his line. She's like, "Now, did you eat the cupcake?" And you know, the thing is about it is that of course he's lying. Of course he's telling an untruth. Of course that's a horrible thing. But at the same time, you know his context. He's a child, you know, and the mother is enjoying enjoying the circumstance as much as he's fearing it. You know, so there's a very different response to wrongdoing there, other than finger pointing and punishment. There's a knowing and an understanding that is built into the grace of God, that is beyond understanding, that is larger than we are. And our rush to judgment is our rush to ego. Our rush to harshness is our rush to ego. For the divine, there is a patience and a caring and a wiggle room that is there as a promise, as a demonstration, for us to live in response to, for us to find our truth because we don't want to lie to our mother, to find our response to because we don't want to live in the suffering that we live in the pain that we experience as people, just struggling in the dark to find meaning, to find purpose, to find strength, to find dignity, to find love. And the grace of God is that beneficent ever-present gift to us, like the wind blowing. It's inescapable. Our boat will blow to the destination whether we have the sail up or not. It'll just take a lot longer if we don't put the sail up. It says that Girish Ghosh, that famous playwright and actor from Calcutta, Girish Ghosh, and also definitely a member of the Riffraff tribe, had a life of he was called a bohemian. That was the nice way to say it. He was rather bohemian in his life. And Girish Ghosh once asked Holy Mother, "What sort of mother are you?" Which is an interesting question. Most of us don't really consider that. Oh yeah, God is mother, that's fine. But he's poking at it. What do you mean exactly when you say God is mother, when you are our mother? At once she replied, so no hesitation, your real mother. Not just the wife of your guru, not an adopted mother, not a vague mother. Your real mother. And she makes a very sound point of driving it home that she is the real mother. That means you do not have another mother besides this mother. And the mother whose face you call mother is merely the face of the Divine Mother, merely an expression of the Divine Mother. And to come home to the beloved as mother is to come home. It is to be where you belong. It is to find what you are meant to find. It is the purpose of the life that you are living, that you have been seeking for. This relationship, this response, this is your practice. This is your world. And Mother will make the best of it and take you to the highest in it by these wonderful stories of love and acceptance and grace that are meant to teach you what it is to be the mother of the world you live in all the things that you say and do. In the temple of Radharaman Krishna at Vrindavan, Holy Mother prayed fervently that she might not see other people's blemishes. This is the Divine Mother praying not to see others' blemishes. What's the first thing we think God sees when he looks at us? And here God herself is begging not to see our blemishes, not to see our faults. This prayer, which was literally fulfilled, was only an outer expression of an inborn characteristic of hers, which made her an embodiment of compassion and patience. Compassion and patience. This is the nature of the Divine Mother, compassion and patience. And it is the first directing of the voice in your mind. Your first attitude toward yourself should be compassion and patience. To always persevere, to never give up, to not be harsh, to not be judgmental, to not be angry, to not be disappointed, but to be compassionate and patient so that you can live a life that is inspired and not a life that is driven toward the beloved, toward that divinity. Later in life, when she found people around her criticizing others, she would mention her prayer in Vrindavan and say, "Formerly, I too used to notice others' faults." So there was a time where she was a fault finder also. She saw it in other people. She mentioned that. But this prayer that she prayed was fulfilled and it was removed from her. She says, "Then I prayed to the Master and through his grace got rid of this habit." And again, how did she do it? Through grace, that living in response to the compassion and patience that she knew was her nature, the nature of God, the nature of the divine. So she didn't beat herself up and crank herself out and do all kinds of, gyrations to get rid of this thing. In faith, in response to knowing that the divine did not see her faults, did not hold her crimes against her, but saw her as its child, as his child, as her child, as that child, that she took faith in that, and through that inspiration got rid of this habit of seeing the faults in others. So through his grace, I got rid of this habit. It is in the very nature of man to see defects. You should learn to appreciate virtues. Man is no doubt liable to err, but you must not take notice. If you constantly find fault with others, you will see faults alone. To Yogin Ma, she said once, do not look at the faults of others, lest your eyes should become vitiated. Vitiated means to ruined in quality. That you've ruined the nature of your eyes if you run around seeing the faults of others. And this is the clue to how that works. If we know in that relationship with the beloved that our faults are not held against us, if we know that we are treated with compassion, and we have faith that we are treated with patience, a patience that we have no idea how deep it goes, then how would we dare to live a life externally in any other way? How would we dare to be demanding of our family members in the way they treat us, or demanding of the way of our brothers and sisters in the way that they treat us, or the general stranger on the bus? Where is the room for any offense? In the light of the grace and compassion and patience that is so freely promised, so freely given to us, so that we're reminded this is what we're built on. This is the seed at the core of our being that keeps our heart beating, that keeps our mind working, that keeps our breath, coming and going. It's this seed of love, which manifests as compassion and patience, which manifests as seeing virtue in others. There's a very interesting point there that when she's talking to Golap Ma about seeing the faults in others, she doesn't actually say stop seeing the faults in others. She does say that other places, but in this one to Golap Ma, she gives a very big clue on how to not see the faults of others. She said, you should learn to appreciate virtue. So that means to notice virtue, to appreciate virtue. If you have a weakness in seeing others' faults, then make an exercise of listing their virtues out and watching for their virtues the next time you see them, watching for their kindnesses. This is the way the mind changes. This is the way the heart changes. If you just remove a bad habit, you have a vacuum there. There's nothing there. The bad habit has to be replaced with a virtue. It has to be replaced with something beautiful. Jesus tells a story. He says, if you just go and you drive out all the sin from the mind, but you do not replace it with anything, he said the demons have found a new home that's been swept clean and ready for them to inhabit. You have to fill the home with grace. You have to fill that vacuum with love and with divine, compassion, divine giving. So that means it's not enough to just not be selfish. That's why Vivekananda says the two measurements for our spiritual life are not just are we unselfish, which is his first measurement, but the second one, are you loving? If you remove unselfishness, you can just sit still. But then you have to ask, am I loving? Am I proactive? Do I manifest love in the world? And so any time that we're trying to overcome something, we can't be one-sided just by focusing on not doing whatever it is we're trying to work on. But we should focus more on appreciating the opposite of it, appreciating the virtue that is being reflected by it, that it is the shadow of. Then that's the way that we become like our Divine Mother. That's the way that our life becomes a response to that love, and not just a running around trying to clean things up all the time. So she says, do not look at the faults of others, lest your eyes should become vitiated. Regarding the incident at Vrindavan, Holy Mother said, in Mahadevji's temple in Vrindavan, somebody's baby had soiled on the floor. Everyone remarked on it, but made no move to clean up the place. When Golap Ma noticed this, she tore a strip from her fine cloth and cleaned the spot with it. The other women said, oh, since she is cleaning it up, it must have been her baby. Mother says to herself, listen to what they are saying. Someone also said, no, these are holy women. They have no children. They are doing it for the convenience of others. So you can see here Golap Ma, who has been corrected previously by Mother about seeing the faults of others, now sees, a mess on the floor from someone else's kid. Someone who sees faults would tisk, 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 and look around and see who did this, whose child did this. Get over here and clean it up. But she doesn't do that. She has heard mother's inspiration, heard mother's call, and she ruins her own sorry, tears her good cloth, mother says, to clean up the mess on the floor for the convenience of others. That's a measure of lovingness. Unselfishness would have been not to make a big deal of it and not say anything to anybody, but loving is to tear up your own good comfort, to serve, to make the world a better place for the convenience of others, as it were. But to have that kind of eye, so that we're looking for that. I used to take a walk with a devotee in San Francisco who used to drive me a little bit crazy, actually embarrass me a little bit sometimes, because she would always pick up the trash. In San Francisco, the neighborhood, there'd be a lot of it every now and then. And she'd be walking along and if there wasn't a trash can, she would have an armful of trash and just be picking up trash. And I found myself being annoyed by that, But now I see this is a very real world, although possibly unimportant or trivial, but it is an act of love, which makes it incredibly important to live in a world like that we walk around to make the world a better place for others, that we walk around with an eye of service to the simple things, just to have a habit of leaving the campsite in a better condition than what we found it, in the words of my dad growing up. So this is an act of love. This is an act of response to God and to our nature and to that divine perfection, which we all see and are dazzled by to different degrees as we move in that direction. One morning, Holy Mother was seated on the porch of her house when suddenly Kali Kumar and Bharada began to quarrel about a fence put up by Kali Kumar. Soon they were about to come to blows. Their sister tried her utmost to calm them down, blaming them both for the quarrel. After a while, some of her disciples intervened and persuaded the brothers to stop arguing. Still abusing each other, they went away. So I love the fact that our Divine Mother actually had brothers who were just, quarreling without shame in front of her and dividing up their property and arguing over a fence and coming to physical blows about it. I mean, goodness gracious, that ruins a Thanksgiving dinner if anything does. And even with her and all the disciples calming them down, they agree not to come to blows or to tear the fence down, but they still walk away muttering and cursing each other. And so in an excited mood, of course, Holy Mother entered her own house. All of a sudden, she burst out into laughter. All right, there's a wonderful demonstration of detachment. She bursts out into laughter and says, "What an illusion this Mahamaya has conjured up. Here is this infinite world, and what one claims as his possession will be left behind at death, and still men cannot understand this simple truth." This simple truth. We're not here to take. It's impossible to take anything with us from this world. That's the biggest clue we have to our nature. Our nature is to give. Our nature is to serve. And it's when we get it wrong, that we think we're here to take or to get, that we suffer. And it's such an obvious truth that Mother in her divine nature can see it and never lose sight of it. But what does she think of this, fighting over these things? When she goes back into her own home, she bursts out in laughter at the foolishness of it, at the young toddler standing there with a cupcake stain around his mouth. It's like, can they not understand this simple truth? That's what she says. Still men cannot understand this simple truth. What is that simple truth? That we're ever free. That we are of a divine nature. That love is the most important thing. Not just in some ridiculous statement of philosophy, but in the way that we live our day. In the way that we think of strangers. The way that we think of Republicans and Democrats. In the way that we think of everyone around us. This is our calling, our inspiration, our response to an example of this divinity, of this love. And when it gets intense and when it seems like it's coming down to blows, we don't go and fret and worry about it and get stressed out and full of anxiety and try and figure out, we go and we laugh because we understand, this all passes. At the end of the day, love alone is important. And that love is eternal, and that love is ever present and ever existent. And we take refuge. We take refuge. And in that refuge, we find our strength. And in that refuge, we find our understanding. And in that refuge, we know what to do next in wisdom and humility. Not from the idea that we'll change the world, but from the idea that we manifest Mother's love always. There was a village watchman named Ambika, whom the Holy Mother had addressed, who the Holy Mother had addressed during her childhood as brother. He was an untouchable. All right, so here we have the Divine Mother, talking to an untouchable and referring to him as brother, even as a child. Well, maybe as a child. Perhaps that's natural as a child, actually, which is a part of the lesson even. One day in later years, he said to her, "People call you a goddess, the Divine Mother, and by other such names. I don't understand all of this." Holy Mother says, "You don't have to understand. Just remember that you are my brother Ambika, and I am your sister Sharada." That's the beautiful thing of Mother. You don't have to understand. Just know love. It's a very simple formula. It's a very simple inspiration that changes us all the way down. It's an open acceptance of everyone and everything. It's how we learn to sit quietly in the dark and wait for the divine love to turn the light on. All you have to know is the love of the Mother, that she is your sister, she is your mother, she is your daughter. And that relationship, as it grows, is your life, is what you will become. The same book, it goes on, it says, the artificial famines created by the British house. And one day she invited him for a meal, which was arranged on the porch of her house. An Orthodox Hindu of those times, in many respects, treats a Muslim as untouchable and regards food or drink touched by them as polluted. Nalini, Holy Mother's niece, began to throw the food at Amjad's plate from a distance. I've never been in a circumstance like that where somebody was throwing food at my plate from a distance in order to feed me. But what a message, what a discomfort that would be. What a strange notion. And yet you see what selfishness can do. You can see what wrong ideas about religion can do to us. And the behaviors, the very odd behaviors, which from any perspective, who could look at that scene and not think this is wrong? this is not the way we're supposed to be. Who could not do that? And yet she couldn't, and felt like it was the right way. And she's going to demonstrate that here even a bit more. So she says that Nalini's Holy Mother's niece was throwing this food at Amjad's plate from a distance, and Holy Mother noticed this and said, "How can one enjoy food if it's offered with such scorn?" She says the obvious, right? Did that even need to be asked? And yet it shows what a tight little world we can get into when ego takes charge. When we consider ourselves something to be respected, or ourselves something to be revered, or something that we have a value that's separate and apart from our divine nature shared by everyone. When we start thinking that way, we'll start doing weird things like this. We'll start judging people. We'll start, acting like, oh, I can't talk to that one. I can't touch that one. Or I won't go near that one. And it will do awful things to us as people. And so Mother draws our attention to it. She says, who are you thinking about right now? How is that man going to enjoy that food if it's being given to him in such scorn, with such scorn? And you can think about that. You're serving an unreligious person, a person who has no spiritual life, a person whose vices may be huge and obvious. And it might be your temptation to throw the food from a distance. But hear your mother's voice. She's not throwing your food to you. She's serving you with her own hands. She has said that no one will clean you up but her. Now know that she's talking to the man that you're mistreating that way in the same voice, with the same level of concern, and with the same promise. And suddenly you realize that your life is not being lived in response to the grace of Mother. That your value of yourself is not based on the value of the beloved that dwells within you, but you're placing your value on your own ego and on your own position and accomplishment. And that is not a life lived in response to grace. That's a life of ego. So listen to this. How can one enjoy food if it is offered with such scorn? Let me wait on him properly. After he had finished his meal, Holy Mother cleaned the place with her own hands. Nalini shrieked. Okay, so she's not getting it yet. Nalini shrieks, "Aunt, you have lost your caste." "Keep quiet," Mother scolded her. And she added, "As Sharat is my son, exactly so is Amjad." Now, Sharat is the monk of Ramakrishna who became Sri Shardananda, who wrote the book, The Great Master. So she's saying, in the exact same way that this very highly accomplished, devoted monk of the beloved Master is to me, my son, so is this man, whom you calling an outcast, who you despise as a Muslim. He is equally my son. Now, in a world where everyone is equally the son of your mother, does that not make you the brother or the sister of everyone? And can we despise each other in that light? Can we mistreat each other in that light? Can we judge each other? This is how Mother teaches, not by scolding Nalini, but by doing it herself and demonstrating love, demonstrating compassion, inspiring us higher by seeing how her love is equal everywhere. Sometime in 1893, at Nilambar Babu's house, Holy Mother performed the Panchatapa, or austerity of 5 fires. Accordingly, on the roof of the house, 4 blazing fires of dried cow dung were lighted about 6 feet apart. The sun, which shone brightly overhead, was the 5th fire. Okay, so she's doing an austerity here, a means of controlling and breaking down the sense of separation and ego. She's going through a rather intense one now. I went to the rooftop of this house where she was performing this, and it's just a big cement slab in the Kolkata sun, which is not a small fire like it is here at this particular place in the world. The summer heat of Kolkata is unbelievable, and the thought of starting 4 fires 6 feet from you on each side and sitting there in the heat of the sun all day long without moving, without respite, it's an incredible practice. Mother doesn't do it just for one day. She says, the sun which shone brightly overhead was the 5th fire. Holy Mother bathed in the Ganga and entered that fire. She was required to sit there surrounded by the 5 fires from sunrise to sunset. Okay, that seems like that would be enough. One day, that's pretty drastic. For me, 15 minutes. For me, just watching would have been enough, actually. I wouldn't even want 15 minutes of it. And here she's saying, she went through this ordeal, not for one day, for 7 consecutive days. Okay, now, I, at this point, am bewildered. I'm like, why in the world would anybody do something so stupid? Okay, I'm just talking frankly from my own world, my own worldview. I was like, why would somebody do something like that to themselves? That is crazy. She went through this ordeal for 7 consecutive days. Holy Mother felt an inner peace, but her fair complexion had become dark. Yogin Ma also underwent this austerities. When an intimate disciple wanted to know the real reason for her going through this kind of ordeal, okay? So I'm not out of place in wondering why in the world would you, as the Divine Mother, who already has all there is to have spiritually in this world, why are you doing this? My child, I went through it for the sake of all of you. Can you practice these austerities? This is why I had to do it. This is why I had to do it. So Mother here practicing this intense austerity because she knows that you and I are not going to, that we can't find that level of discipline, that level of self-control, that level of surrender. So she does. Can you meditate on that for a minute? Can you meditate on that for a minute? You know, the entire Christian religion is built around that same idea of the incarnation giving utterly of himself, herself, for your freedom, for your freedom, for you to experience love, for you to know or to get an idea of a love that is so far beyond anything you could express, and to losing yourself in that love. So that love becomes the reason for everything that you do. And you, like your mother, practice not for yourself, because you've already been given it. You practice your austerity for others. You go through the hardships of your life, not for your own endurance, but for the welfare of others. You know, when I joined this order, that was one of my favorite things, is my favorite thing, that the vows basically come down to two categories. One for our own realization, of course, but the second for the welfare of humankind, the welfare of the world. And you see that it changes the reason that we discipline ourselves. It changes the reason that we practice, that we sit and do our attempts at austerity. It's not a selfish endeavor that we do for ourselves. We do it because it makes the world a better place. We do it out of service. I think it is a crazy idea to think that I would sit and do japa for someone else because, like Thakur says, I'm a waterlogged, log that can't even float myself. How am I going to carry someone else across the world? But I still think that there would be a great smile on Holy Mother's face if you dedicated a certain amount of your japa for somebody else's realization, for someone else's giving. And I bet there's a secret in that, just in the same way that the young man who got that secret mantra and was told not to tell anybody because if he did, they would go to heaven, but he would go to hell. And so he goes up on the hill and just shouts out the mantra to everybody, knowing that he himself is going to go to hell. And his guru's response is one of amazing grace. Of course, the kid goes to heaven immediately. And it's like that. If you can actually perform your life, your practices, your spiritual life for the benefit of others, that's the selfless nature that Mother is trying to imbibe in us, trying to teach us, trying to place into our heart. There's another story about it which is quite beautiful here. Chandra, a worker at the Udbodan, was fond of eating. Okay, another brother of mine. Someone fond of eating, and it was the occasion of Shivaratri, when devotees fast and keep vigil at night, spending their time in meditation, religious singing, and worship. The inmates of Udbodan, as was the custom, were fasting the whole day and night. In the morning, someone had teased Chandra, asking him to observe the fast too, needling the fat guy in the kitchen. Hey, you gonna fast today? Come on, Chandra, you gotta do it. Knowing he doesn't want to, because he loves to eat. At first, he raised objections, of course. No, I can't possibly do that today. But at last, he was prevailed upon to go without food along with the rest. In the evening, he went to Mother's room to offer his salutations to her. The mother looked at his pale and hungry face and asked him what was the matter. In a sad voice, if you're doing your practices and you're talking about them in a sad voice, this message is for you. So she says, what is going on with you? And he says, the mother looked at his pale and hungry face and asked him what was the matter. In a sad voice, Chandra said that he was compelled to go without food on account of the persuasion of the inmates of Udbodan. All right. What percentage of our practice is compelled because of others, putting us in a situation where we don't want to be humiliated or embarrassed, or we want to be able to say that we're doing it? You see, that's where Chandra was. But Chandra, there's a delightful thing about him. Here the Divine Mother is asking him what's wrong. And he doesn't say, oh, I've been fasting, for God and I'm hungry and miserable. He tells her the truth. He's like, I was forced to fast and I didn't want to. I just want to eat, And in that honesty, look at this. At once, Mother asked him to take food. But I'm fasting. And that's exactly what he says. When he objected, saying that in that case he would not derive the merit of fasting, she said, I will fast for you, and you will derive the merit. Chandra beamed with pleasure, and at once ate to his heart's content, and the mother went without food. This is the love of the mother. She would rather have your honesty and your sincerity, your earnestness when you approach her, than your austerity and your pretensions of doing practice and doing hard work. She wants your heart first. That is the life of the mother, to inspire us to live in the heart first and not in the actions and the externals. That we are devotees and children of the mother in our heart. That we live in love from the heart, and that our actions come because of that, not because we're being compelled, not because we're being afraid, not because we're afraid of the unknown, but because of love, a deep, rooted, unchanging faith in the depth and the power and the demonstration of love in all things, all the way around us, training our eyes to see it everywhere. Once Holy Mother was about to leave for Jairambati and said to a little girl, darling, you have been visiting me for a very long time. Do you love me? Yes, I love you very much. How much? The girl stretched out her arms. You can see the little kid now. This much. Of course, they have to put them back a little bit. That much. She says, that much. And the mother asked, will you still love me when I'm away in Jairambati? Yes, I will love you the same. I shall not forget you. There's a child teaching us right there. Mother has gone away to a Jairambati very far away, seemingly. And we still love her just the same as if she were here, just to follow the words of a child. Yes, I will love you the same. I shall not forget you. Let me tell you how to love everyone equally, Mother says to her. Do not demand anything of those that you love. If you make demands, some will give you more and some less. Thus, your love will not be the same for all. You will not be able to love all impartially. There is a startling lesson in this. I mean, in the one sense, yes, don't demand anything of those that you love. So we see it from our perspective. Oh gosh, I can't demand anything. I can't expect anything. If I stopped expecting things, then nobody can disappoint me. And if nobody can disappoint me, then I can love them. And that's absolutely right. But look at this from Mother's perspective. Do not demand anything of those whom you love. What does that mean to you and your relationship with Mother? She's not demanding anything of you. She's loving you impartially because she's not demanding anything of you. Your life is not to fulfill the demands of God. Your life is not to fulfill the demands of a commandment. Your life is to live in response to a love that's given to you impartially, irregardless of what you do and don't do. And to have the courage to build a life on that truth. Because there's an ego in each one of us that says, no, 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 but. And that ego must be quieted, must be quelled. We live spontaneously on the seed of love that is our nature, on the presence of the beloved, which is our life, and in a relationship with that beloved, which is our day-to-day, the way that we are. One day, not long after Sri Ramakrishna's death, Holy Mother was going to Jairambati from Kamarpukur. Her nephew Shivram, who was a mere boy at the time, accompanied her with a bundle. As they neared Jairambati, he thought of something and stopped. The mother was surprised and asked him to follow. Shibu, I shall move only if you tell me something. All right, we're talking relationship here. This is the Divine Mother with one of her children. I'm not going to move until you tell me something. So Mother says, what? Shibu, will you tell me who you are? Mother, who else am I? I'm your aunt. Going for the obvious. Shibu, then you can go on by yourself. You have come near your home. I won't go with you. Mother, don't be silly. Who do you think I am? I'm a human being. I'm your aunt. Shibu, very good. Then why don't you go? Seeing Shibu still standing there, the mother said, people say I'm Kali. Shibu, are you really Kali? Is it true? Mother, yes. Shibu was pleased then. Well, let's go then. Takes her arm and they head off to her home. One day before a disciple, Mother referred to Sri Ramakrishna as Bhagavan, God himself. The disciple asked, if the master is God, then what are you? Who else am I? The mother replied without any hesitation. I am Bhagavati, the divine mother of the universe. A woman devotee asked her, why can't we realize that you are this divine mother? Mother replied, can everybody recognize divinity? There lay a big diamond in a bathing place. People thought it was an ordinary stone and rubbed the soles of their feet against it to remove the dry skin. One day a jeweler went there, saw the precious stone, and realized that it was a valuable diamond. This is to conclude the idea. You see, if we do not recognize the unconditioned love of Mother, if we do not live in response to that, and we hold on to our vices, we hold on to our ego, we hold on to our comforts and our day-to-day forgetfulness, then we are using the love of Holy Mother to wipe the calluses off of our feet, because we have not understood the value of that relationship. We have not understood the depth of that love. The reason that we do our practice, the reason that we discipline our lives, the reason that we practice our austerities is so that we can recognize the depth of the love of the Mother and to stop using God to wipe the calluses from our feet. Mother is that divinity. She is the manifestation of your beloved as your mother. She demands nothing of you. She knows that the love of her as your mother will inspire that life. And in silence and patience and compassion, it is ours to sit in her presence, to move when we're inspired to move, to act as we're spontaneously inspired to act, because the love that is within us will act perfectly in purity with our eyes on our beloved Mother. All right.